All right. Well, welcome to the fourth installment of the CTO webinar series that we started last year with our esteemed CTO, Ben April. We'll get into introductions here in a moment, but firstly, I want to just say to everyone, this is being recorded. Please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. We want this to be really value additive for our audience here. So don't hesitate to ask some questions. We'll get to as many as we can, and anything we can't get to, we'll be happy to respond to after the fact as well. Thank you all for committing the time as well. This is really important for us. I think having an open line of dialogue with our customer base and the community as a whole is really important to us, and so we're excited to continue this series here in the new year. We are changing the format slightly for today's webinar, in part because it's a new year and we may be introducing some special guests into the webinar today. And just as importantly, we want to take a look back. This is again kind of the start of 2024. We want to take a look back at what we talked about at the end of 2023, kind of get a status update on where things are at and where things are heading. And with that said, Ben April, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, my friend. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. It's a pleasure. Yeah, it is properly winter up here in the New England area. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's getting cold out here. But yeah, we're excited for today's meeting. And again, I think maybe as a good starting point for the discussion today, Ben, we talked a little bit in preparation for today's meeting about taking a little bit of a retrospective on some of the things that we announced at the over the course of the last 3 webinars, some of the new features, capabilities, a lot of exciting news, status updates on how it's going, what's available, how do people get access, all of the things that will help people kind of figure out what our baseline is coming into 2024 and what we should be looking forward to through the rest of the year. But as a starting point, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the reception of some of the announcements, the V3 protocol, some of the new features that we announced, OSINT profile, or all sorts of capabilities and products that are really exciting for us. Yeah, would love to hear a little from you on that.
Happy to, my friend. Yeah, so we'll start with V3. The protocol has been out for months now, getting some great feedback. It's kind of almost paradoxical. If you're a user, you don't notice a whole lot of difference other than you get very rich data back every time you run a transform. If you're a transform writer or a developer creating the integrations, that's where the real power comes in. You really, suddenly start to have the ability to return, rich data without even trying. It's a really powerful thing. We're getting great feedback on the ongoing early adopter program. I'd encourage you, if you're a data partner or if you're a data partner, reach out to our hub team. If you are a customer integrating your own data, reach out to our support team or your reps, and we'll get you involved in the early adopter program, get you access to the SDK that is steadily rolling out to broader and broader audiences. It's really exciting, and we're seeing a lot of interesting capabilities come out. Next up, we've had a number of client releases this past year. We're now up to Maltego 4.6.0. If the title bar on your client says anything older than that, please do upgrade. There's definitely some powerful capabilities and features that you're missing if you're not there. Really, what 4.6 adds gets us into the world of Maltego ID for CE users. That's kind of starting slow, kind of replacing what we had for authenticating CE users, but it sets the groundwork for kind of exciting new browser-based tools that are in rapid development right now. If you're a commercial customer, reach out, because we can start to show you what those look like at this point. Go ahead, Justin.
Sorry, just as a quick refresher for maybe folks who weren't as aware, Maltego ID, what does that really mean for our customers?
It's a unified authentication system. It's really intended to replace license keys. We've heard loud and clear the message that if I've got 100 users and 100 different license keys, everyone has a spreadsheet of who's got which license key, and that's a pain, and nobody wants to do that. So Maltego ID really replaces that. It's intended to tie in with your single sign-on system. We don't want to manage user accounts. We want to point to your SSO platform and capture that information. Your users would log in with their typical account, their typical two-factor, all of that stuff, and get the entitlements automatically, based on what's configured in the admin portal. It's really meant to kind of streamline the whole user experience.
Love that. I'm sure many of the folks in the audience and other users are very excited about those capabilities. And speaking of which, and I'm sure it's kind of in a little bit of the same vein, but we talked the last webinar, maybe 2 webinars ago, about time and space and some of the capabilities that are coming up with that as well. How are we tracking for this year on that, and kind of what should people be looking out for?
So we're case management, time and space. Those are all rapidly heading towards beta programs. We'd love contact from folks who want to play with that as it reaches that stage. I'm expecting sometime in the next couple months to actually start trickling that out and making that available in a beta mode. I'm really kind of excited about the potential there. We've got some pretty impressive demos and pretty exciting capabilities coming as part of that program.
That's awesome. And so for any of our existing customers, the customer success team, our support resources, your account executive, all of those can be a avenue to engaging with the beta program, and we'll certainly put you in contact with the right folks.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then I guess in terms of for what's available today, so we announced things like OSINT Profiler, we announced again V3, all those things. How do people get access to that stuff today? What is the
OSINT
path for that?
OSINT Profiler's in field right now. Reach out to your rep, and we don't have a CE for that. That's a kind of a power tool. We don't want anybody getting hurt. So yeah, reach out to your team and express interest. We've got a lot of trials running. Glad to have more.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, and then for anything future, just stay in contact with your account management team. We'll keep you in the loop on any announcements, timelines, anything that doesn't get shared in a forum like this here. Certainly, it'll also be available on our website and other areas like that. So,
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, well, again, part of what we wanted to talk about today was a little bit of the retrospective, but now, of course, kind of looking forward, what are some of the things that we're excited about? And we talked about special guests, or I talked about special guests, teeing myself up for this very announcement, which is Rebecca Köhler is going to be joining us here on the webinar today in a few moments. She is the head of data partnerships and integrations at Maltego, which, as you can imagine, is kind of the core of what drives the value to our platform. Those partnerships and the relationship that we form with each of those really important vendors and data providers out in the market. So she's joining us today here in just a second to talk about some of the ways that we are looking at the road ahead and how we want to better support our customers. And with that, Rebecca, welcome to the CTO webinar.
Welcome, Rebecca.
Hey. Hi, Justin. Hi, Ben. Good to be here.
Great to see you. For those who may not be as familiar with who you are, Rebecca, and maybe your background, if you could take just a few moments and share a little bit about kind of what it is that you do within Maltego and how we can, again, what we're talking about today and what we're going to share with the group.
Sure. Yeah, and nice to be here. My name is Rebecca. I have been with Maltego since 5 years, since 2018. I'm part of the leadership team at Maltego, and I'm heading this, what we call data partnerships and integrations. So basically, my team is building, or has been building and developing the Transform Hub together with, doing partnerships with a lot of different and very exciting organizations and companies out there. that organize or have data that is useful for investigative purposes. And we've been expanding the Transform Hub over the past years. We now have over 100 integrations up there. And we've also been working on ways to make this data more and more accessible to our investigators and to lower the barriers to actually really integrate a lot of different insights into investigations.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. And this is something that, Ben and I talked about in previous webinars as well, which is, just having the best data or the most access to the data is good, but it's not quite enough, right? We want to make sure that we're also empowering our customers to be able to extract as much value as possible when in their utilization of Maltego as a platform. And one of the key areas that I think can be very overwhelming for our customer base is just the sheer number of transforms and knowing kind of where to start. And I know a big part of what we're focusing on as a part of our roadmap is exactly to your point, Rebecca, kind of lowering that threshold a little bit, making it a little bit more intuitive how to engage with Maltego so that you can start seeing value early and recognize your use case, your workflow within the platform a little bit more easily. And with that said, maybe Rebecca, you could take a few minutes to share with the group here about, some of the ways that we're doing that and how we as a company are viewing our Transform Hub and how people are engaging with it today.
Yeah, so I think we have a couple of interesting kind of new things. On the one hand, what I think some of our users are already aware of, but maybe not everyone, is that already when you buy Maltego and a license, it actually comes with a lot of good number of data access out of the box. We call it click and run. That means that you can actually just run transforms without having to insert an API key. We've on the Transform Hub, you can look for these options with these filters that we have that we present there, and you can look for this. But actually, we are trying to now also to make it simpler for you to find these things and to also navigate the different data sources. And what you might have already seen, the Maltego Enterprise users, what we have already put out there is what we call Maltego Selection. So there's by now already one hub item that is called Maltego Selection for CTI that is available for our enterprise users. And what we do early this year is to make a bit of a family out of those. So that actually for different use cases, you just very much on the top of the Transform Hub, you find a hub item that might serve your use case. And there are a lot of different integrations actually packaged up in one hub item. You only need to install one. And then you can get going and actually make use of this out-of-the-box offering, this click and run access that is included with your Maltego license.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And I think, when we present some of these new capabilities with our customers and folks who maybe are not as familiar with our offerings, one of the things that we like to talk about and how we frame the messaging there is kind of what problem are we solving? And we touched on that a little bit a few moments ago, which is, it can just be really overwhelming to engage with the Maltego platform and not know where to get started. So if I'm hearing correctly, it sounds like a lot of what you're focusing on is providing a framework for our customers to be able to say, hey, this is my use case. I would love to just have one area where I can kind of go get the relevant integrations into one single kind of bundle, as you put it, and then we're kind of off to the races with the data sets and integrations that are most aligned to some of those use cases. Is that a fair way of kind of thinking about it?
Yeah, Maltego Selection is a very good initial starting point to fire up Maltego and to get started with investigations. And then there's a lot of chance also to dive deeper, but this really allows you quick and easy to get started and to already tap into a lot of value that would otherwise be maybe a bit more difficult to discover.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So when we're talking a little bit about the roadmap ahead, we're starting here with selection. What else can users or customers kind of be thinking about or be keeping an eye out for in terms of what we're planning to where we're planning to take things over time here? Is there anything that you can share with the group that would give them a little insight into what selection and other similar kind of things are setting our community up for in the future?
So yeah, I think one other thing that we're have also actually already introduced, it's actually even not, it's even already also another reality already,
Great.
is what we call Maltego Data Pass. So if you want to get it one step further and actually get access to more kind of premium data, then yeah, we have made it more simple for you to actually purchase one subscription, like one data pass that gives you access also to a lot of different, by now it's actually 13 vendors, but expect this to be growing also over the next weeks and months. And this is just one subscription that gives you access to what we call data credits, and then you can actually redeem those flexibly on these different participating vendors to really leverage the data that you need for your investigations, which might be maybe also a bit varying, or maybe you want to try different things out first when you just get started.
So is it fair for folks to think about this in terms of Maltego Selection is more about kind of the click and run stuff that's out of the box with Maltego that you don't need to purchase additional access for. It's about grouping those integrations together based on use cases or whatever it may be. And then Data Pass is about more of those premium commercial resources that are like, hey, instead of managing 7 different contracts with all of these different vendors, we're giving you an opportunity to purchase the Data Pass, which is going to bundle a few of those commercial vendors together into one single contract and provide them with access based on the credit system that you just mentioned, so that they can start to, again, explore maybe new data sources that previously they did not have as a part of their kind of workflows, and certainly figure out ways based on kind of how we're bundling some of these things together for use cases to get even more value from Maltego, because we're providing access to some key data sources that probably are really well aligned to the use cases that are within that data pass, whether it be a person of interest or threat intelligence or whatever it may be. Is that kind of the right way to think about this?
Yeah, that's very accurate. You can maybe think of Data Pass being like big sister or brother to Maltego Selection, and well, things work well together. Yes, but in general, we recommend, or the Data Pass is probably interesting really to investigators out there who really want to get really serious about integrating external data into their investigations.
Can you talk about how Data Pass integrates with existing subscriptions that I already have?
Yeah. So yeah, of course, it's quite plausible that you might already have API keys to a certain data source that has worked on Maltego and is also continue to work. You can use this also in conjunction with this click and run access and with Data Pass. And also, if you start using Data Pass and you find, hey, there's actually this one source in Data Pass included that is actually really interesting, and I use actually this source quite heavily, then it might also make sense to combine Data Pass with this, with also a more specialized subscription of that provider to give you even more access to that particular source.
Cool.
That's great. And on this topic, I guess I see a question here from the audience. So for an existing vendor, how would they go about getting added to the Data Pass if they're interested in participating?
You can reach out to me or my team. We're happy to consider that.
Perfect. And for those of you who are interested in reaching out to any one of these teams that we're mentioning here on the webinar, we'll make sure that contact info is made available at some point during this webinar or after the fact, so that you can reach out directly. Okay, so I think Data Pass is again another indication of hearing the feedback that we get from our customer base, right? And this goes back to how important that customer echo back or that feedback loop is for informing our roadmap and the decisions and how we're prioritizing. Where do you see Data Pass going? What's available today versus what might be available down the road here?
Yeah, so what we actually got started with last year is to launch a very first Data Pass module centered around person of interest investigations that is by now also fairly mature. What we have then also added towards the end of last year is a module centered around cryptocurrency investigations. We can also later show this a bit. And we're now in 24, we will mature this one further. We have a couple of more vendors lined up to boost this further. And we also have a CTI and Dark Web module already on the final mile, so to say. So expect this also in Q1. And yeah, and then from there on, yeah, we see where we take it further. We also, apart from just adding more sources, obviously we want to make these also usable. I mean, it's not that, you know, the pure quantity of things is so relevant. Yeah. So we already have, for the person of interest module, there is a course on our trading platform Spark that accompanies this. So we want to make sure that we have just great learning material that yeah, supports to get started with the product and be successful with it and explore all the different sources in there and their strengths, because yeah, we have different vendors there that all have their own really unique strengths and specialities on what kind of data they have and how they get it, to make sure our investigators can successfully use this in their investigations.
Yeah, that's great. I see two questions here that are, you know, kind of tied together. So the first is, you know, can people do a demo or trial of DataPass to kind of determine whether or not it adds relevant value to their workflows, and what is the process for that? I know from a sales side, but Rebecca, any specifics there that we maybe need to kind of touch on, or can I answer purely from the sales perspective?
No, I think my answer is probably similar to yours, Justin, that for existing customers, we just encourage them to reach out to their customer success representative, and if you're not yet a Maltego customer, just reach out to sales@maltego.com for Justin and team.
That's right. And I'll just say, for anyone who's in due diligence now with us or considering, you know, again, they've had some initial discussions, we can absolutely make DataPass a component of any proof of concept, proof of value. And it'll be obviously a little bit more limited in terms of the number of transforms or you know, API calls you can make, but it'll help you determine whether or not these, you know, specific data partners that are a part of DataPass are relevant for your use case. And with that said, the next question I think is perfect, kind of piggyback off of this, which is how US centric is the data that's available within DataPass, right? I know that our partners, many of them have, you know, a regional focus, you know, because of, you know, where they're located or because of where they're collecting their data. But, you know, for users, we are a global company. So how diverse or how regionally centric are the data partners that are part of DataPass? Should there be any consideration for our customers there in terms of, is this a good fit for me because I'm located in a different part of the world?
So, I mean, we as a team, we try to find coverage from the sources that you know, that in general, the Maltego customer base is well represented. Yeah. If I look at the vendors that we have included there right now, we do have a mix of companies that are more focused on the US, but also European providers, a couple of Israeli providers in there. So yeah, it is a mix. If you look for the type of coverage that you can expect from these sources. And maybe with regards to, like, you know, hosting or other service, like the model within DataPass is that any query that you send will first go to Maltego. So that's typically right now the US, and yeah, you might expect maybe also that dedicated service in the EU this year. Yeah, and then we'll basically forward it to the data provider. So that's maybe also another consideration that is attractive, that yeah, you don't have to maybe, you know, like, to identify with all the different vendors out there, but it's actually this single source of contact.
Perfect.
So
and
let me add two pieces to that. One of them, Rebecca said it, but it's probably worth kind of re-emphasizing. One of the kind of architectural pieces here is that Maltego is brokering the queries. We're brokering the queries for many users. So the data provider, in that case, doesn't actually see who made the query. So there's some a little bit of query privacy that comes out of that. You know, and the other piece mentioned was right now our primary servers are US based, but you know, stay tuned for announcements about the ability to select which servers your Maltego application links to in terms of which region they're in the near future.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. And so we have a couple more follow-up questions on this topic, and some of these may be worth a deeper conversation, right? So one of the questions is, would DataPass be applicable to investigators, say in South Africa? Right. So again, back to kind of the regional focus of some of the data that's coming back. If I, as a customer in South Africa, purchase DataPass, will that data be relevant for my region? We can certainly kind of maybe again talk about that a little bit more in depth with these individuals after this webinar. But essentially, again, we're looking at these data providers. They have their, again, sometimes a very broad and global coverage model. Others have more regional focus. So we can talk about that and what might be most relevant for you, depending on, again, what type of data you're looking for, whether that's dark web data, IOC data, person of interest, things like that, social media. So we can absolutely take that conversation offline and share some more details there. The other question is about, as a vetted customer for DataPass, is the vetting done once or for each individual vendor? I don't know if maybe we get a little bit more clarity on that question. Are you referring to the vetting for customers who purchase DataPass, or the vetting for the vendors who are part of the DataPass bundles? Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
So yeah, we like if we have a request for DataPass, we vet the customer and see whether the customer complies with all the criteria lined out by all the participating vendors. And yeah, so it's basically a one-step process, and this is also performed by Maltego, so it's convenient and fairly quick.
Perfect. And then one other question we're getting is DataPass only available for enterprise users, or is it available to other users as well?
Yeah, right now, Maltego or DataPass is you can combine it with an enterprise license.
Okay, perfect. And then so the vetting for customers. Yeah, so I mean there's not like a the vetting is more just about understanding again the specific use case for you as a customer. You can talk to your customer success team or account executive and just discuss what is the use case, what is the exact parameters or requirements that you have, and then you'd be absolutely eligible to purchase DataPass. There is an additional cost associated with that premium access, of course, but we can talk about that with on a case-by-case basis. So happy to discuss further again offline. And yes, Iris, it is for enterprise users only. So DataPass for that premium access is available for our enterprise customers. Okay, I see some details that were shared here. So we'll make sure again we'll reach out to you individually after the webinar here. Okay, so without getting too much further down the specifics here, I think there are a few other topics that we wanted to talk about, and I'd love to give us some time to do so. We mentioned already about kind of the person of interest and some of the information that is available as a part of that DataPass. We talked about the future. What else do we need to know, if anything, about DataPass as a concept? Again, kind of where we're headed. Is there anything else we need to share on this topic, or do we want to, maybe dive into some examples of what this might look like for our users?
I think it would be very exciting to maybe see what this is about, and maybe we'll, in the course of that, we might get some more questions.
Some more questions. Yeah, lovely.
All right. Let's roll the demo.
Okay.
All right, let's walk through a quick dark web investigation. You'll note we've redacted the details. So we'll switch over to the Transform Hub and start looking for some tools to use. We'll use the hub filters to select cryptocurrency and deepen dark web. This gives us a set of transforms that are likely to be relevant in this investigation. But there's another path. Now we can try the cryptocurrency DataPass. You can think of DataPass as a prepackaged set of transforms and data entitlements that allow you to jumpstart your investigation. So we'll get that installed. It's going to come with all the relevant machines, transforms, and entities to conduct your investigation. In this case, almost 200 transforms. So let's switch back to the graph. So we'll use Hades from the cryptocurrency data pass to collect selectors. These are data points found on this particular website that help us perform the investigation, like a favicon, Bitcoin addresses, email addresses, and tags. We'll come back to that email address. Let's start by selecting the Bitcoin addresses. All right, so we want to analyze where Bitcoin from these particular addresses ended up. So to do that, we're going to dig into the cryptocurrency data pass, and we're going to run the peel down the blockchain transform. As you can see, this is a V3 transform. So not only is it returning one step, but it's continuing to drill down through the chain. In the past, you would have had to run this transform once per layer. That's a lot of Bitcoin. So let's use another transform from the data pass to annotate the entity and provide additional details. For Bitcoin is something like $160,000. This data is coming from Coinbase. And as you see, we expand the property view and we can see that 11,000 total Bitcoin has been received by this address. It's something like $500 million at the current exchange rate. That clearly deserves further investigation. So let's dig a little further in and see what else the data pass can tell us. So we'll use Coinbase again to pull the wallet information, and it's Binance. This is great for us, not so great for the operator of that darknet site. Binance, being a legit exchange, is going to be subject to regulators and appropriate legal process. So let's pivot and see what we can do with the email address. So again, we're going to look to data pass. We're going to use the person of interest data pass. So let's get that installed. With this one click, you're installing everything you need for person of interest investigations. About 5,000 transforms, 1,000 entities. This comes with machines, icons, really everything you need to make this work. This greatly simplifies the process of setting up Maltego. It also simplifies the process of learning this kind of investigation. Let's go back to our graph and see what we can find out using data pass about this email address. One of the really powerful features of data pass is that not only do you get the transforms and access to the data, but you also get transform sets. And these sets provide a logical grouping that allow you to quickly select the right transform to perform the function you want, even if you're not an expert in a particular data source. So here we want to dig into breach data. So we're going to select the breach transform set. You can drill into a set and select the specific one, maybe the specific source or the specific path you want to take. But you can also just run all transforms in a set and get the benefit of all the output from one click. So we see that this email address has been associated with 2 breaches. So let's go and extract the relevant breach data and see if we can draw any useful conclusions. We found some aliases and accounts, so now we can dig in and continue our investigation. All right.
Love that. So as the non-technical person on the call here, I would say that, certainly just at a glance, what it looks like to me is, one, we've really simplified and maybe even prescribed some of the, what's next in my investigation. It can be really overwhelming, again, to look at just the full set of integrations and transforms that we have available and know what to do next when we group things together within, again, person of interest or cryptocurrency, and seeing what transforms are available within that category of workflows. It's much easier to understand what the next step should be and what kind of information we should be looking to get out of that starting point, that entity type, whatever it may be. Rebecca and Ben both, I guess, since you're both really integral in kind of what our roadmap looks like, how are we prioritizing some of the types of partners that we're bringing into the Transform Hub as a whole, and then beyond that, how do we prioritize who we involve in data pass and offerings like that? Is there kind of criteria that we're looking at, or just some ways that we think about how we're prioritizing some of those integrations today?
So I think the most important source of feedback, or source of inspiration or feedback, is obviously what we hear from our customers. I mean, we've been obviously in talks all over the years, and I think this is already an answer to what a lot of people have been telling us. We could integrate some vendors in DataPass that have been like very popular choices amongst our investigators on Maltego already. We are in general eager to hear more. Yeah. So if you see DataPass and you think something is missing in there, we're always happy to learn about this. And that's how we we are continuously screening other vendors, or looking for understanding whether there is a particular type of information that is not there yet, and then looking for potential sources to satisfy that need and to cover it.
I'll say there are far more vendors than we could ever imagine integrating.
Yeah.
I don't know how Rebecca and her team keep up with the volume of integrations we have already. But yeah, I mean, really hearing from the users, hearing from the customers what it is they need, what it is they're missing, definitely helps us target where we're going to put focus.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think something that we talk about, certainly on the go-to-market side, which is anyone who's customer facing essentially, is people ask all the time, kind of what is Maltego? If I'm a customer, what should I be thinking about? What characteristics would I have that would make Maltego a good fit for me? And something that we just highlighted in the demo here, I think aligns really closely to how we're messaging Maltego, which is, we've seen over time this shift, right, from really siloed kind of teams. Hey, I'm purely in trust and safety, or purely in fraud prevention, or purely in cybersecurity, and there are tools that are purpose built for those functions, which is wonderful. What we're finding more and more often, very similar to what we just shared here, here's a cryptocurrency investigation that would have data sets related specifically to cryptocurrency, but now we have an individual's email address. Okay, now we're shifting into person of interest, and there are different types of data sets and integrations there. So I think we're looking more holistically at data and intelligence as a company, Maltego is, and then still recommending and grouping things based on use case, because that's really important. But when you think about just how diverse the vendor landscape is, and Ben, I think you just alluded to this, there are more vendors than we could ever possibly, integrate with. So what are some of maybe the key categories and use cases, again, not specific vendors, but some of the key categories and use cases where we're seeing the most interest from our customer base, and where are we focusing a lot of our time? I don't know if you can share any insights into that.
Yeah, so I think person of interest for us is again kind of a big topic, that is a relevant one. But that expands in different angles. Also, how data is, kind of what the techniques are to get the data and what type of data we're talking about. But that's typically one keyword that we use here. Then we've seen this modular or this use case around crypto. Then we have cyber threat intelligence, threat hunting. We have, that is also currently actually included in the person of interest data, but could also be a separate thing, is what the corporate data, so information about corporate structures of companies, that can also refer to individuals, also has their own value in its own. So that is another type. I'm sure I'm missing some more, but those are some example categories that we tend to think in.
That's great. I actually see a great question here, which I'll defer to you, and then I probably have my own perspective as well. But the question is generally, how does DataPass save us time? And this goes back a little bit to what problem were we trying to solve by creating DataPass to begin with? So Rebecca or Ben, I don't know if you want to take a stab at answering that question.
Yeah, so I think it saves time on the one hand, and like a purchasing decision or purchasing process, particularly if you feel lost. Obviously, if you know what you want, then there you can also, of course, reach out to different vendors and purchases. But we have made the observation that a lot of customers really appreciate the kind of like some guidance, or want the guidance, or want actually a quote for 100 sources on the Transform Hub, and that is not feasible. So right now, and then reaching out to everybody, and that takes time. So on the one hand, people save time, which is in the purchasing process, is like one-stop shop, one product to buy, and then they hopefully save time in getting quicker to value when they start their investigations, just by the way that you only have to you only have to install one hub item, or maybe a handful. That's how we have currently clustered it. And that comes with the course and the training, and also how transforms are arranged. So these are the two maybe relevant dimensions of how it saves time.
I'll add a third one, which is really kind of the onboarding and learning Maltego. When you're sitting at Maltego that has only the integrated data sources, only the few initial data sources, it's a little harder to kind of learn the whole process, learn kind of in-depth investigations. If you can sit down at a Maltego client with a full data pass and all the transform sets, it gives you pretty solid jump start into, okay, now I can go this way, now I can go this way. You don't have to figure out where I'm going to get that data. Really, all the data you need for an investigation ideally is in that data pass, and as long as the investigation kind of stays within the lines of that class of investigation, you're in good shape.
Yeah, and I think
maybe just one clarification, because maybe that we find that it is sometimes unclear to people. So it's like there's one data pass, one product, but then you have these different, like just a couple of different hub items that you can install, and you can install them either all of them together, or just the ones where you think they're most relevant to you, to not get overwhelmed from the start.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I would say also, I think one of the big pieces about data pass versus maybe Maltego selection, right? I mean, if you're just looking for more intuitive access to the types of data that are most relevant for your investigation, both Maltego selection and data pass address that to a certain extent. The benefit of commercial data sources, right? A little bit more of that curated. There is some level of filtering and vetting that goes into those data sources more, most often. And as a result, when you're talking about kind of your confidence in the data that you're seeing as a part of these investigations, your time to making a decision, time to response, time to arriving at whatever kind of conclusion you're trying to arrive at, having the confidence in the data makes that a lot easier. So we talk about, how is it going to save you time? Well, it's going to be, I think, dependent a little bit on your trust in the data that you're seeing, but the hope is that by not only allowing you access to these key data sources that have gone through some additional vetting so that you can have additional confidence, you will be arriving at a decision, an answer to that investigation much faster. So that's, again, another area where we can probably save time as well. And then I saw one other question here, and this is, I think, related to what we call, Maltego on-prem. But are we able to bring our own CSV data and other information into Maltego to visualize correlations between things like, different lists of phone numbers and locations and things like that? Yeah, is that something that we're going to continue to support over time? I mean, I know it's one of the key value props today, but I just want to throw it over to you guys.
Import's not going anywhere. If anything, we're gonna add to the capability and provide more on-premise customers' own data tools and systems for integration. So there right now in the box, so to speak, there is an import tool that will gladly take in CSV or other text formats, turn that into entities. But that's definitely a strong focus going forward.
That's great. And that's something that's available to our Maltego Enterprise users and then Maltego on-prem as well. The big differentiator there in terms of when we talk about own data, it's not necessarily like a CSV that you can upload. You can upload that with Maltego Enterprise, but what on-prem offers is the ability to make API calls to internal data sources or integrations into internal kind of like proprietary data sources that may not be something that you can quickly or easily export via CSV that you'd want to be able to make queries into within Maltego and visualize that data against some of the more publicly facing or commercial offerings that are also available within Maltego. Is that a fair differentiation there?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And then how does data pass allow us to dig deeper? I think very similar to what we've been talking about here, which is access to those commercial data sources. Very often they go into an additional level of kind of analysis. And so you're not just getting the raw data returned back when you make a query, but there's also maybe some additional context or some additional, again, kind of vetting that goes on. So it will allow you to take what's available via the open source and then using more potentially reliable or actionable data sources from some of these commercial vendors, being able to take additional steps in your investigation. So I think that's all, part and parcel of the whole idea behind DataPass and our integration with these really important integration partners. Okay, so without going too much deeper into any of this, I know that we have a lot of exciting things ahead for us. So to kind of quickly recap, Ben, just briefly, what are some of the things we should be looking out for over the next, let's call it, 3 months from Maltego, from your side, as far as the roadmap? What should customers be thinking about?
I should definitely be thinking about things like time and space. The beta is starting up for that, as well as case management. And yeah, stay tuned. Lots of new exciting capabilities on the horizon.
Wonderful.
This is going to keep this train's going to keep rolling.
Yeah, love that. And Rebecca, for existing customers and those who are interested in things like DataPass, how, from a timing perspective, what should we be thinking about? What expectations should we be setting as far as when these things will be available and kind of the cadence that we'll be releasing some of these new bundles that you were talking about here?
Yeah. So DataPass is already available as of now, so it can be purchased. And the good thing is also that everything that will be further added, cut down the road will and also come in automatically, so to say. You don't. It's not that you're losing out. Yeah, what we will see here in Q1 is a kind of a more refined CryptoPass module, module for CTI and dark web investigations. And apart from DataPass and also Maltego selections, this will also grow into more of a family, covering different use cases. And then we also have a couple of interesting workflow integrations that we're working on to really also work on this pillar of integrating data that you have in your own systems, and bringing that, also combining that with the external view of things.
Love that. All right, we're going to open up to the last few questions here. I know I see a few that are popping up, so I'm going to address those quickly here. So social media investigations, DataPass will be a big one. Yeah. So when we talk about social media, I know person of interest tends to fall under that category to a certain extent, but where does social media fall into our DataPass?
Yeah, it is under our person of interest module.
Okay, so Alan, that is already something that you can access via the person of interest DataPass, and again, happy to talk about that offline. AI. Okay, well, AI is a topic that we hear quite a bit about. I know there's a pretty wide spectrum here as far as where people land on this topic, but is AI a part of our roadmap at all when we think about kind of assisting in investigations and helping in some of that analysis or insight?
It's definitely something we are thinking about hard and carefully and working on. We realize that a lot of our users take cases further into legal process and things like that, and we want to make sure that whatever we do in terms of AI, ML, things like that is defensible from a evidentiary and forensic perspective. But yeah, active work ongoing. We've got some interesting ideas, and we've got some cool prototypes in development. Hopefully we'll have a webinar at some point in the future talking about what we're doing there.
Yeah, lovely. And this is another opportunity for our customers and the community as a whole to provide feedback on this topic. I think for us, doing it for the sake of being able to do it is not not a good justification for anyone, right? So we want to make sure that there's a real that there's not only just like the business opportunity, right, that customers want to purchase access to this, but it's also something that we as a company philosophically, right, that at our core we kind of believe in. We don't want to do anything again just for the sake of, hey, because it's going to make the company more money, or because someone, one person asked. We want to really be careful about the decisions we're making, as Ben mentioned here. So all of these capabilities and some of these innovative ways of thinking about solving these critical problems will always be taken under really serious advisement, and certainly will be a really closely kind of considered and thoughtful decision whenever we do release those capabilities. So stay tuned, but please feel free to share feedback about that as we go along here with your customer success team or directly with us here in the leadership team. Any type of guarantee, I guess that Iris, that goes back to a little bit about, it depends on what the use case is, what you're doing today versus what something like Data Pass or any other offerings of Maltego's, where that may add value. Happy to talk about that offline and talk a little bit more about your specific use case and environment. And with that said, I don't see any more questions. So I will. What's that?
I said, let's wrap it up.
We'll wrap it up. Look, I really appreciate Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining us. This is obviously something that has been, for Ben and I, a really important opportunity to connect with our community. So glad that you were able to join and share your insights and a little bit about the roadmap for some of the really important work that you're doing. Ben, as always, appreciate you so much, man. It was great to talk to you again. And again, Happy New Year to everyone. And be on the lookout for the next webinar. We'll be talking more about these great topics and hopefully some really exciting announcements for our customer base.
All right. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.